The League of Ostermark has been devastated by the blight of undeath. Outnumbered and overrun, the Empire have called for aid to stem the tide now bleeding westwards from Sylvania. The Moot marches to war, the greatest strike force this world has ever seen. Rooster Cavalry, vicious, bloodthirsty beasts like the dinosaurs of Lustria, with razor-sharp beaks and shredding talons. Halflings and Imperials, teaming up with Soup Tanks, Swine Riders, and Golden God Gelt to push back the invaders. But love blooms on the battlefield because Isabella and Vlad von Carstein are the masterminds behind this daring assault, and with them, shamble thousands of newly turned recruits, fresh from the pillaging of Ostermark. We return to OVN Lost Factions for a look at an even more fleshed out Halfling roster using the End Times mod by the Duke. 6,000 troops on the field today, the hottest couple since John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and the fiery aftermath of a devastated city. Should be quite the spectacle. Hope you guys can stick around. And it's too bad if you were civilian chilling at home, because the Moot and the Golden Order showed up a little bit too late to save anyone. Might be just in time for some good old-fashioned avenging, though. I'm sure Vlad and Isabella have some other ideas. What I don't know is why the city is even on fire. It's not exactly a hallmark of the undead, so maybe rioting? Not really sure. I'll tell you what, though. I see a zombie horde marching my way. I'm dropping everything and running like hell the opposite direction. Not sticking around to burn down my ex's house. Now these are the creme de la creme. Cockerel Riders, essentially war roosters, bonus versus large light cav that pack a wallop in CQB. Their faction-wide passive is called Tricksy Little Halflings, so when they're losing in melee, which is often, they get plus 10 melee defense and more AP. Remember, we are playing the End Times mod, so stats will be different across the board, and combat pacing is its own thing compared to vanilla. And there are some ogres in OVN Lost Factions as well. They're not really my favorite. I think some things are just better off waiting for, but they get the point across. Big hulking brutes with tattoos of the Great Maw. And those were the Feastmaster Exiles, ogres who realized they'd eat a lot better when employed by the Moot. And honestly, they're probably right. You've seen this baby before, the Kathleen Soup Tank, which does have its own unique particle effects that actually look like soup, but I was having issues with it, so I skipped it for this replay. And it'll look like a flame cannon instead, but same idea, really just melts hordes of enemies into sticky blobs of goo. All across this defensive line, you'll be seeing farming tools like pitchforks, scythe, sledgehammers, brooms, whatever they can pick up to defend their homeland, because they're right on the border of Stirland and Sylvania. If things go poorly here, they're next on the menu anyway. Glibfoot Volspanker is their legendary lord, the greatest halfling in generations if his tall tales are to be believed, equipped with an AP crossbow, vigor boost for allies, and thieving tactics that make him max level sneak. For the undead, the von Carstein bloodline is out in full force here, going heavy on the flyers with a ton of Vargeist and fell bats. The main infantry force is really just different types of zombies, some converted from conflicts with Volkmar and his flagellants, some recently turned from the state troop garrisons and still wearing their imperial armor, but at the end of the day, they're just zombies. They do regen passively though. That's one thing unique to the End Times multiplayer. All of the undead regen. So the longer they stay on the field, the worse it will get for you, but they're weaker in some other areas to make up for that. Standard vampire tactics, really. Grind them down, wear them out with stupid numbers of stupid zombies. Let the heavy hitters do the heavy lifting. That's how they do it. Corpse Carts, a Vargulf, Blood Knights, and Vlad von Carstein himself will support on the Central Plains, while the Soup Tank continues to extract a terrible toll in and amongst the Walking Dead. Already racked up close to 100 kills, and now firing into the Blood Knights. Now, not a bad idea. Certainly going to deal some good damage to them. I wouldn't mind just getting rid of all of these zombies first. I'm not sure how well the Soup Tank will do against the higher armor of those Blood Knights. Pistolier is getting very aggressive, doing some early charges into the front ranks of this shambling horde, and Isabella moving up on the Imperial and Mootland left flank. And she's got even more flyers on that side. Isabella mounted on a Hellsteed, meaning she's even more annoying than usual to deal with. Her zombie summons could be a huge factor in this battle. And Halfling Rangers, gotta move, son. Fat Bat bounding in from the front. Golden God Gelt screaming in from the side, and we might get a little bit of a monstrous duel. I would love to see Gelt take down a Vargulf in this replay. That would make me incredibly happy. But first, the zombie hordes must get into melee and start engaging the Halflings and the Imperials. They have a nice firing line and a great defensive position. You can see these cliffs on both sides of the battlefield will do a good job of anchoring their flank and preventing the vampire counts from getting around the side and into the rear, but they've also invested heavily in flyers, much more so than in their cavalry. So I think the Empire, with their Knights of the Blazing Sun charging home, should have a cavalry advantage, but vampire counts don't care so much about flanking because they can fly right over the top. Big final transportation coming out from Golden God Gelt. Not an overcast, just a normal one, but hitting the Vargeist, Fellbats, and quite a few of the von Carstein undead on their left flank. Meanwhile, Isabella being a bit more hesitant, a bit more reserved, and that's opening an opportunity for the Swine Riders to make it into melee. That's right, we're not talking about Warboy for the Greenskins or Razorgore Herd for the Beastmen. We're talking about legit Schweinsteigers, and the size, the pitchforks, and the Halfling defenders making it into melee with the zombies, and we'll see how they do. Oh, that was some friendly fire. Oh, one of those poor Halflings caught it in the throat. Not ideal. Vargulf down to half HP already from the focus fire in and amongst those handguns and archers in the rear. Vlad notices it, summons some zombies on them, and here comes a gorgeous penumbral pendulum, outright deleting 2 zombie units from the game. Not too bad, and I believe that was a regiment of renowned zombie on Isabella's side. That's just gone, crumbled out completely. Kathleen Soup Tank already used almost all of its ammunition, almost up to 200 kills already. Most of those on zombies, numbers a little bit inflated of course, but the Roosters riding to war, cockerels on the prowl, and I would legit rather fight a dinosaur than have to deal with one of these full-size, man-sized roosters every single day of my life. They are vicious and territorial creatures that are basically honey badgers in bird form. And they are dinosaurs. They're pretty much dinosaurs. I mean, they are the living ancestors of the lizard people that once roamed our Earth. And they're doing a great job clearing up the zombies and freeing up the range stuff in the back line. Black Knights with lances and barding charging home, busting through the Halfling Spear Militia, who are already down to half HP, so might be able to break through and compromise some of these range troops. Terror Goosen has landed in the rear, dealing with flagellants alongside some more zombie summons, and so far, vampire counts have done exactly what they need to do. I don't know if that might be a Wind of Death. Gehenna's Golden Hounds popping off in the background too. Yeah, that wind was not a great cast. Probably didn't get Vlad more than a handful of kills there. And that's expensive. That's a big blow to be missing a Wind of Death. That was easily dodged. Regiment of Renown moving up on the right flank and more summons, this time on top of the Cockerel Riders, which probably isn't the worst idea to just get them exhausted, and maybe the Blood Knights or the Vargeist could swarm in and deal with them. More Fell Bats returning to the fray, and I feel like the Vampire counts are beginning to do a great job of shutting down all the ranged options for the Empire and for the Mootland. Hex Wraiths are free, the Chill Guys can be a massive problem for these Cockerel Riders. They're a bit busy right now, racking up those kills against some zombies, gorging themselves on rotten, putrid flesh, saying we want that MVP. We want to get 300 kills here, even if they aren't exactly high value. Gotta clear up the back line anyway, gotta free up all your Pistoliers. Some of them have run out of ammunition going for a rear charge. And the Chillgeist's Hex Wraiths are free, while Greatswords push them backwards. Wardens, with their improvised farm tools, their sledgehammers, taking the arms, heads, and limbs off their opponents, and doing a good job of holding the line so far. But Isabella and the Corpse Cart and all their support, they are swarming. And on this side, it looks like they might be able to push through. But remember, there are some really important units left in the field for the Mootland. That Kathleen Soup Tank is still full HP, I believe, and that can grind through a horde of infantry by itself. Easily up past 200 kills already, and now can go into melee and be used like a chariot. A big armored chariot, spewing soup on all of his enemies. Plague of Rust going down on the Terrorgeist. Full surround off. Gelt might need to go help out there. Cockerel Riders are free, and I'd like to see them go for maybe the Blood Knights or some of these Black Knights to help turn things in their favor a bit more. Sickle Infantry and the Wardens going at it with more zombies, and that is one thing the von Carsteins have certainly done this battle, is just drown the world in a tide of undeath. They've gone for the full zombie build, and so far, the support has done a great job. The Corpse Guards kept the zombies in the fight. The Black Knights and the Hex Wraiths are still around. The Greatswords have dropped to half HP, and we checked on them, what, like 15, 20 seconds ago? I'm not sure what happened to them, how they lost so much of their health. Isabella surrounded by flagellants, and they're going to try to take her down, but probably won't work out too well. She does not have her Blood Chalice of Bathory, which I just realized today what that's actually referencing. I've always called it Bathory, so it never clicked that it's a reference to Elizabeth Bathory, the gentle lady with the highest kill streak in Hungarian history. The legends say she bathed in the blood of her victims to retain eternal youth. And she might have inspired Bram Stoker's Dracula, of all things. I mean, the connection makes perfect sense. I just never got it, which I'm a little bit embarrassed about, but whatever. Gaze of Nagash, gonna hit our legendary lord in the face. Did a little bit of damage to him. And the Pig Riders, the Swines, are on the hunt, and they're moving towards the von Carstein side of the battlefield to maybe get a rear charge into the zombies and break them for good, free up all this infantry so they can collapse in on Isabella and the Black Knights and the Chill guys. Here we go. Cockerel Riders and the Swine charging home. Not a whole lot of impact damage as you would expect. I would imagine those Halfling Cav and their little runts, their little piggies, don't deal a tremendous amount of damage on the charge. They do have bonus versus infantry, and these Cockerel Riders do have bonus versus large, but bonus verse is less of a factor in the End Times multiplayer. You saw at the beginning, Cockerel Riders have like 2 or 4 bonus versus large, so it's pretty minuscule, and that's true for every bonus verse in the mod, I believe. It's more about base stats, which Vlad has a lot of, and he face-tanked an entire regiment of ogres and managed to win, while the Terrorgeist continues to feast on Glibfoot Volspanker. Isabella dealing with the Halflings infantry on their left flank, the Vampire Count's right flank. Both corpse carts, Unholy Lodestones, have been around the entire game and regenning in an AoE, which is a big problem. If you're the Halflings and the Imperials, those have to be one of the first things you snipe out, and not having any cannons to do so has hurt them here. I think having some artillery that could snipe out these single entity targets would be a really big factor, but it can also be very challenging to keep them online against someone like Isabella on her Hellsteed. They're clearing up the zombie summons back here for sure. Pistolier's getting some good charges in. Greatswords are still alive, down to about 1/4 health, but it's looking like a lot of the range play has been tied down for a long time, and the only way the Halflings and the Imperials can claw their way back into this game is by getting them free and firing. And it looks like Glibfoot just dropped the Terrorgeist. Imperial Foot Halberds, the elite halberds of the Empire, tried to help them, but got there a little bit too late. And a big breath attack coming in from the Terrorgeist, that Shriek, killing quite a few models on the handguns. So those dismounted Reichsguard with their polearms will be a huge factor here. Ogres with a full surround off, if they can tie down the Terrorgeist long enough for the halberds to make it in and they kill the Terrorgeist, that'll be a massive swing on the balance of power. And the cavalry advantage is still retained by the Empire and by the Moot. So if they combine that together and goon out some of these single entity monsters, they might be in okay shape. I think a lot of the balance bar is inflated right now, even though it is in favor of the undead. It's inflated because they still have living single entities, but get a full surround off on a Terrorgeist and maybe Isabella, kill them off for good, and you're right back into this game. You still got full strength halberds, still got a full HP steam tank, the Kathleen Soup Tank, still have some Knights of the Blazing Sun and their flaming damage, which will deal additional damage. Stuff like the Unholy Lodestone Corpse Cart, and those Blood Knights are on their last legs too, so this game is definitely not over, but they've got to get it together and fast. Searing Doom raining down on the zombie horde, but also dealing some friendly fire damage too. See, the Cockerel Riders are wavering. Swine Riders getting ready for a rear charge. Terrorgeist dropped to 1/3 of its health, fully surrounded by halberds and greatswords now. That's so much armor-piercing damage going its way. Exactly the engagement the defenders need here. But Black Knights are free, Isabella is free, and they're on the hunt for Golden God Gelt, who's running for his life as Isabella screams overhead. Quickly! Swiftly! Quickly! Her voice lines make me want to die every single time, which is kind of hot, so it's alright. Begs the question, I guess. Is it worth accepting the blood kiss from Isabella or Neferata or Vlad von Carstein? Accepting eternal life and dating some hot vampire? Sounds great on paper. Yeah, see, the steam tank's saying, no, it's not worth it. Not worth it at all. Definitely not worth it. Yeah, I mean, it sounds great on paper, but remember, forever can be torture. Forever is a long time. And now you have hunger that can't be sated, thirst that can't be slaked, and now you have to eat people for a living. Like that, there's some downsides to that for sure. That's interesting. I wonder what you guys think. So we got the Terrorgeist watching the steam tank. Another Gaze of Nagash taking out Gelt. He might rout, and the balance bar is swung incredibly far in the span of the last 30 or 45 seconds, and it's looking like the Undead might be able to finish this one off for good. The Swine are into melee. Yeah, the Imperial Foot have routed off. Man, they killed a bunch of stuff there. There's a lot of Crimson spewed on the ground. But I'm thinking the Halflings have run out of any momentum they might have had. To be fair, the Undead were bled this battle. The Terrorgeist is on its last legs. Isabella doesn't have a ton of HP left. Which I guess she's about half. Terrorgeist might lose the duel to the Kathleen Soup Tank. Meanwhile, Vlad on this side dealing with the remainder of the Halflings and the Imperial State Troops. But that is going to be your battle, I think. And the biggest issue is that the corpse carts were not really dealt with until the very end of the game. You can see the skeleton left of one right there. But the other one's still alive. And all that regen was a huge problem for the Halflings here. They weren't quite able to get rid of the zombies in time. And even though the Cockerel Riders and some of this heavy cab did great for the Empire and for the Moot, it was not enough to carry the day, and Vlad will style on a few of the survivors, turn them into undead automatons, and that will be the end of the game. Well played to all players there. We'll see the Kathleen Soup Tank make its last stand, and it will explode, and that will signal the end for the Moot and for the Empire. The biggest issue they'll be facing is that the Undead will replenish all their losses with a couple Invocation Hex and a couple Raised Deads. Brutal. Now, it was a teeny bit corrupted just at the very end. We could not figure out what was causing it, what the issue was. Both the Duke, who sent the replay to me, and myself, we tried a bunch of mod combinations that they had used, and we just couldn't get it figured out. Don't know what the problem was. It's pretty annoying. Either way, it didn't end up being a big deal because it was pretty much the exact same battle, except at the very end, the steam tank died, and we would have gotten to see the stats. So, if you're ever wondering if your replay is corrupted, if the post-battle stat screen is saying that all the kills are 0, that is how you know that, and typically there will be a bunch of units that are standing around that you know you microed in the actual game itself. But still, we saw some pretty cool units here. The Cockerel Riders are without a doubt an awesome unit. They got more than 200 in that game, which is fantastic. Most of it was on zombies, but still microed relatively well. I like the build from the Vampire counts, though. The flying units did a great job shutting down the range play, and I think that was really the main factor, besides the corpse cards regenning everything. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you next time. Indie Pride, signing out for now.